Welcome to Black Creatives Matter. My name is George Moss. I am the senior content editor here at Jam the Hype. And we're having a conversation today about what is the impact of Black urban creators on culture. We have distinguished guests on our call once again today, and I'll just allow you guys to introduce yourself. And starting from my left, I'll go with my man, Derek, which you kind of need no introduction, but Derek Minor in the building. Would love to hear, the reason why we have you guys here is because you guys are storytellers already. And I would love to start off by just hearing a bit of your story of what shaped you as a creator of our culture, and how does that shape the content that you create right now?
Yeah, so my name is Derek Minor. I'm from Pontiac, Michigan originally, and I grew up in the South. I grew up in a small town called Columbia, Tennessee. And I think, I grew up with the black experience, I guess, in the sense of Black church. I grew up Oneness Pentecostal, you know what I'm saying? People running around doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? So I grew up with that. But then I also went to a school that was out in the middle of the country, because my stepdad had this idea of getting a bunch of land, moving us out to the country. So I had more of this crazy experience where it's like from Pontiac, urban area, lived in Columbia, Tennessee, Black church, but then at the same time, a lot of, primarily a white school. So it was just like this really, really, I even to this day sometimes feel like I'm isolated a bit. But the way that has shaped my perspective, I think for me is I would always look and see what's happening in the community and then be thinking like, man, this doesn't have to be this way. So my whole perspective for me always has been, how can I better my community? How can I better my family? How can I better my people? That's always been kind of the angle that I've approached everything from. And at the same time, not wanting to be exclusive in the sense of, I don't like anyone that's not Black, but it's really been about like, how can I pull the people that I grew up with to where I've seen progression going, and how can we get better at finances? How can we get better at family? How can we get better at a lot of things? You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting perspective to know that you came from that, and I see that you do that in your content on Instagram and through your music. You do things that better your community. I can't wait to get into your story, because you have a lot of Black experience that, especially growing up in the South, that might be different than the Black experience growing up in, say, LA or the Midwest. But speaking of the Midwest, Tamara Moore out in Chicago, of Our Soul Radio, had you as a guest before, and I'd love to hear your perspective of kind of where you came from, what shapes culture, or shapes the content that you create for the culture today.
Yeah, so what shapes culture? You said more again, so I got thrown, but it's all good.
I do it all the time. All the time.
It is all good. It's okay. Yeah, so my background is a little different, but has some similarities to Derek in some ways, but it mainly might stem from my parents and how they raised me. They grew up in Mississippi, like the woods, country for real, right? As well as in Jackson, Mississippi, during Jim Crow. So being taught about my history was really big, but I also heard them tell me a lot of stories of just coming from nothing, literally. And it was really interesting to see, because growing up, I watched them move into entrepreneurship and do really well in it. So it was often just interesting to hear the history and the story, and to go back, to Mississippi every year, several times a year, just to see where they came from, and to see the hard work they put into building something from nothing. So that always inspired me to find ways to do the same. But they weren't just creating something from nothing just to create and make money. Their intention was to make communities better, and they've done that through different work they've done in real estate and other areas. So it's been great to watch that. Where I grew up, mostly Black churches, but white schools, right?
Yeah.
But my parents always made sure to put me in environments where our people were, so that wasn't my only experience. So similar to Derek, I feel as though I've always come from a space also similar to you, where I want to see unity happening, because I've gotten to see a lot from two different sides. So noticing that we're better together when we can listen and hear each other out, just the many things we can learn. I think I take all of that into anything that I create.
Man, that's really dope. Like, I think it's super interesting because sometimes we think of like Jim Crow and all this stuff as kind of like far off, distant in our history, not realizing like that stuff is so close to us. It actually does shape the way that we create today. And, you know, you having that connection to the South, Derek, having that connection to the South. I wonder, Jonathon Jacobs, a filmmaker out in LA, dope work that you do.
Thank you.
You know, LA area. It may not be, I'm not sure what your background is and how that shaped your experience, but what's been your experience growing up as a Black creator in this culture, and how has that shaped the culture or the content that you create as a filmmaker?
I think being a Black creative, growing up for me, I started out, you know, raised as a child with the Black church. And then when I moved out towards Rancho Cucamonga, where I live now, for almost 15 years, predominantly white church is the first thing that we went to, which was kind of a culture shock for me because during my teenage years, it was just felt like you were always trying to find out like who you were in the midst of like a whole bunch of predominantly white people, you know, who are still trying to figure out technically how to deal with you. Cause like there's some people who embrace the culture. You know what I mean? Like the white culture, and they're wearing like the Vans shoes and the necklaces and puka shells and whatnot. And then I was just like the guy in like Tim's who was like, who wanted to crump. And it's like, what? You know, like, how do you handle that? And so I think like I just kind of embraced my creativity. And I see kind of like how like God, of course, and church and my work ethic was kind of birthed there though, which was one of the great things. And then also being able to mature myself. I ended up working at a predominantly Black church. And I think that's where I just really learned about, you know, just Christ's passion. And that's why I named myself John's Passion, because Christ had his passion. I have mine, you know, and so I work with the passion to serve and the passion to create, you know, beautiful stories, authentic stories to help people. And so I've actually been out here doing cinematography for over 3 years. And through that journey, I've been able to help other people kind of come together and to get to that level, because we all know we live in a world full of media. We live in a world full of production where people need to, like, if you don't have a digital footprint, you almost don't exist, you know? And so it's like, I was like, God, I want to help create a bridge in that gap to help get us that foot up, you know, and you know, even more so like help my own people, you know what I mean? Because we always got that cousin who'll do it for the low, but it's not always going to be the quality that we need. So I was like, let me bring that quality, like, you know what I mean? Like everything's looking like the funeral cutout pictures and stuff like that now. So yeah, so that's
oh man,
that's John. That's not Jonathon Jacobs.
Yeah, not the R.I.P. John. No,
That ain't nothing but your carburetor. I'll fix it for $5. You know, like, so. You know, I really want to bring quality. I really want to bring creativity and passion to what we do. Like, if I don't make something that you don't feel, I feel like I'm not doing my job right, you know? And so that's just literally kind of like the catalyst that kind of birthed John's Passion.
Love it, man. Love it. And with the flyest glasses in all of Christian hip hop, in all of our whole spaces. So I'm actually, it's my first time getting a chance to meet with you, and I'm very excited to hear your story, where you come from. 𝗫 Campbell, founder of CHH University, and just all the dope content, looking at your IG and stuff like that. Briefly got a chance to get to know you. Would love to hear all the content that you create, and what was your story, and how did you kind of come to the spot where you're creating now?
Listen, man, thanks to you and all of you on the panel. Thanks for having me on here. I'm kind of starstruck right now, seeing everybody. So it's like, man, yeah, my heart is beating. It's true. But 𝗫 Campbell here, First Lady of Holy Hip Hop. I'm a Christian hip hop artist. That was my start, I guess, with this whole Christian industry thing that I'm stuck in right now. As far as CHH University, it's an online school, and we're in the process of moving it from South Carolina to Chicago. And it's something that God put on my heart last year to do after traveling, doing ministry and mission work, what I realized is Christian artists like myself, some of us weren't knowledgeable in the things of God, or our focus wasn't to really share that message. It was just jump on the stage, you know, do what you do. And my heart was kind of broken a few years ago watching that while I was out on the road. And God just kind of really talked to me last year and said, hey, if it's bothering you that much, let's do something about that. So my charge now is to finish building this online university for musicians, artists, faith-based artists, mostly Christian artists, where they'll have online business classes, ministry tools, you know, teachings from bishops and churches that, as you see, we're all dispersed now and Corona has us all kind of, you know, locked down. So I see the bigger picture now that this past year just came. So basically online resources available for Christian music artists all across the world, and they'll be able to log on and whatever they feel their need is, whether it's learning about fellowship or leadership or how to build their faith or how to build their finances. These tools will be available for them online at chhuniversity.com. So that's the big weight that I'm carrying right now. So if you guys could be in prayer for that, that God will send professors who are strong in his word and really believe him and follow that charge, I would greatly appreciate it. They can inbox me, email me, @gmail, or just DM me anywhere on social media for more information on that. But back to you, because you had a question.
My question is going to be, now that we understand that we've been fed a certain narrative of Black history. We live in 2021. We all have Google. Now we're able to know a lot of other things that happened in our country, in our society. It is 2021. We've seen the Barack Obamas. We've seen the Oprahs, and we've seen the LeBron Jameses, and we tout those as people that have been successful. But we've also have a whole new generation of people that understand I actually can start a business. I feel like we've actually, if we don't acknowledge the progress that we actually have had. I mean, you look at somebody like a Master P that is, you know, started off and, you know, created an empire, $200 million, you know, from scratch. And he actually did come from nothing and created something. And then we look at this, you know, small business that's, you know, they just starting to sell, you know, little handmade soaps that they make, or, you know, there's a new grocery store that just opened up in our area that's, you know, selling, you know, fresh produce and things like that. I think there's a whole new wave of entrepreneurship, and there's a whole new wave of understanding what that is. And I'm wondering, what are we doing now in 2021 that we've seen the sort of miseducation of the past, and we've seen the perpetuation of, yes, we know about Martin Luther King. We've all heard the I Had a Dream speech, and we all know that there was more to it than that now. We've all got Google and we can all see this. But now that we have this, what are we doing? How are we impacting culture right now? And what is it about our culture? I look at just the Cardi B's of the world, and I look at the rappers and the singers and the people that are influencing our culture. Those are the celebrities and things that seem to be leading our culture. Are there other people that are giving these voices, or do you feel like there's a new shift in our culture where it's not just the you know, vulgar music that, you know, perpetuates things that are anti-God and anti-Christian stuff? Because at the end of the day, not only what is our Blackness that combines us, or that unifies us, it's our belief in Christ. And it seems that our culture has been so it's not a work against flesh and blood. This isn't a black or white issue. I can see this as an enemy that is much bigger than just a white race that is against Black people. I see that this is a spiritual enemy that has kept us in this thing, kept us in this perpetual cycle of either poverty, not only poverty of money, but poverty of mind, poverty of our community, poverty of our relationships with one another. So I'm wondering, not only us as Black people, but us as believers and leaders in our spaces, whether that is the content that we create on social media, the music we create in the studio, the film that we create, the educational tools and resources that we're creating. What are the things that are shaping us right now? And do you see that the future is going to be brighter and different, knowing that, yeah, it's going to be not so much a white America in the future? Or do you feel like there's certain systems in place that we just can't break down? The people that control, the major media companies, like that's not Black people that's doing that. Like there's a reason why only certain artists get the airplay that they get, that only certain artists get on the front page of your YouTube algorithm. What are some of the things that we can do with our platforms and our leadership that's going to really shape this culture moving forward?
Okay, I'm going first. Education. It's education. And I wanted to say, you touched on something a minute ago about who was leading culture. I don't agree that these artists are leading culture. I agree that they are influencing culture. And the only reason why I say that is, I mean, they do what they do. I think there still is a line culturally where we understand people are entertainers and this is what they do. It's not necessarily, doesn't mean I'm gonna go do it. I might like the song. I might dance to the song. I might do a remix to it. I might go buy a Fashion Nova outfit. Not me, but you know, I might go do it because Cardi B had it. I mean, I might do that, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to go now teach my children or influence my culture to go do the same thing. It just means I like those shoes. I like the red bottoms. I'm rocking them. I'm on stage rocking them. But it doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to teach everybody, you know, over here to go do. It's just, you know, so I think we are educated now to know the difference between what is entertainment, what people do for hustles. But I also know that African Americans now are culturally aware that we need wealth. We need to build wealth. We have to generate wealth. Our whole lot, we're behind right now, right? We weren't even supposed to be here. We were counted as animals. So it's like we're behind right now. We weren't even supposed to survive. We weren't even supposed to continue to be able to build and have businesses. So right now, if you are on Facebook, if you have a cell phone, you are rich. And until I think African Americans travel and go visit other Africans, they will not have a concept of how far along we really are. When we're on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, it seems like other people are ahead of us. But I'm gonna be honest with you. When you go and visit somewhere that has no water and nowhere to, you got to use the bathroom on the side of the road, you'll realize like, man, we are over here killing it right now. So it's important for us to lead our culture from where we are. Everything we know, it's time to pass that down, whether it's from the past or where we are right now concerning business, how to tour, how to travel, how to film, how to record. We have to give back to our culture and continue to grow our culture unapologetically. And even if somebody else wants to be involved and they don't look like us, yes, you can be involved, but trust me, we are going to lead our culture. You can go ahead and, you know, write the check. Cut the check. I think Derek was saying that earlier. I agree. Like, I've only gained respect, and I'll make this short, as I've traveled the world ministering the gospel through hip hop, because I was unafraid to go into different cultures. And it wasn't that I was there to push my culture agenda, but people appreciated the fact that I was okay with myself to come be in another culture and do what I do for the kingdom. And now when I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, Pastor, whoever, or hey, I'm calling Viacom or whoever it is, they're like, oh yeah, she been out here hustling, trying to do her culture thing for a while. And there's a certain amount of respect there. And that's why we give her ear. And so to me, I think that's going to help influence culture, us going out and being involved in other spaces, unapologetically, unafraid, being as Black as we are, and not thinking we have to assimilate or that white is right. And I love my white people. Y'all know over half of my followers are white, you know, but it's like all of them have an understanding that my people need stuff. My people are a little bit behind, and I'm going to bring my people and I want you to work with my people. But we as a culture have to set that standard. And I think it starts with us, education, and just not being afraid to say what it is. I think we have kept our mouths shut about talking about us. And I know I said I was gonna keep it short, but I lied. Lord, forgive me. So the George Floyd thing, I made a post, right? Because I was like, I have let my culture down by not talking about my culture. I love Jesus. I've been talking about Jesus all day. But I got 3 Black sons that, you know, they look Black, like they are Black. And I was like, man, I'm not really out here standing up for the young Black youth. I mean, I am from a faith standpoint, but I had gotten older and I hadn't realized, man, they still struggling in that. But I haven't even shared that with my white followers. Why not? Am I afraid they're gonna jump off my Instagram, my Facebook? And underneath it all, I was like, yeah, I was keeping it really you know, PC, you know, like why was I doing that? And I had to check myself and say, this is your responsibility. Like this is your people. You know what I mean? When you go to bed at night or nobody's home or you looking because your husband ain't pulled in the garage, this your plight, you know. And it's important for you to share that so that other people who don't look like us know where I'm coming from, and they can kind of partner with me in a different way and have some compassion and empathy in a different way. But if I never say what it is, my grandmother used to say, a closed mouth don't get fed. So, you know, if you ain't talking about it, speaking up and asking for it, Bible says asking you shall receive. It doesn't say just think about it and you get it, you know. So it's like we got to start talking about it, educating our people. And I think that's how we lead, even if it's something that's big on the screen and we're like, man, I don't want our kids to come out like that. It's like, you talk to your kids, you know, you take them to a rated R movie or let them watch it, but you make sure you tell them, I'm not saying it's right, but I know people that do this, but it's like you talk to them and say, you know, that's not really how that should be, right? It's like you have to. I think
that's interesting.
No, we got to talk. You got to talk to our kids and our, you know, and our youth and our culture and educate them. Sorry, go ahead.
It's very, very interesting. Like some of the topics that you brought up, the idea of, yes, I do believe it's about talking about some things and being, because we are made to feel guilty, especially in Christian spaces, to talk about your Blackness and your Black experience and who you are. But if we remember, I mean, Christ stood for the marginalized, for those that were oppressed, for the poor, the widow, the orphan, and if you look at orphans, if you look at the fatherlessness in our country, in our culture, I think that is something to be spoken up for. There's a lot of different things I think you can be spoken up for, but I also think that as leaders, and I think sometimes I can see the perspective of the difference between leadership and influence. But I also see the combination of them both, because I have children, and for those of us that have children, they learn a lot of stuff that I ain't never taught them.
Man, come on.
And I think I never taught them, but they know exactly what I taught them, not because of what I said, not because of what I sat down and showed them in a book. It's because of how I live my life. It's how I speak. It's the mannerisms that I have. It's all those things. And when we display mannerisms, all the mannerisms, all the posts, all the way that we phrase things, our temper is like being righteously angry about things, but our temper also of just going off on something that's like really we shouldn't be saying, or our passions, our lust and our flesh that kind of can get the best of us sometimes. We are not only just we can't just say, well, this is just entertainment. Or we can't look at people that say, oh, this is just entertainment. We at some point we have to hold each other responsible to say, listen, you might see that it's just entertainment, but the truth is you're influencing a lot of other people and they're doing what you do. And by essence, that people are following what you do, that makes you a leader and where you're leading them. And I'm wondering, are we, for our own selves, especially as a Christian artist, and this is just one of the things of a perspective I want to get from you guys as well, as a content creator, interviewing artists, as a music producer, as a filmmaker, as an educator, are we co-signing what the rest of the world says, the stereotypes that we don't want, you know, white people to portray us as? Are we portraying this type of stereotype to say, oh, well, I'm going to do this less quality than somebody else? Or is that by force? Do we not have the resources to do it well enough? Or are we actually changing that narrative with the content that we create? Are we actually changing that narrative to say, I am going to, you know, rock a clothing brand that is not like the clothing brand that is most popular to everybody else, but it's a clothing brand I'm going to support? Are we actually making those stances? Are we saying, like, I'm going to go make a film that is I'm going to work with somebody to make sure they have a dope film and it's in high quality, high production, or I'm going to make sure that I am on time and I have a, you know, spec sheet when I talk to these people? Like, what are we doing practically that are changing that narrative in our own businesses? And what do you feel like people in your spaces should do? If you were to listen to, if people are listening to this right now, what is the advice that you would give somebody else in the spaces that you work in to change that narrative?
I would say, I guess, so I run a media company, Art Soul Radio. We promote music, culture, and art. It's 24/7 online radio, online magazine as well. But we also have an intention of bridging communities. So bridging CHH, gospel communities that don't typically support each other the way that they should. And we miss a lot from that. But I'll say one piece of advice that a vocal coach years ago gave me when I did that. And I may not say her words correctly, but I'll explain where she was coming from. She said, never create from a place that's less than where you're from. And what she explained to me about that was, Tamara, if you sing and you know you've come from this church, and you've been around these people, you've digested all of this sound and tricks and tips, when you write, you should include at least some of that. You should know when to use it, when not to. So applying that same type of ideology even to what I create within media, there are a lot of ways that I could approach it, right? But for me, I have to include all parts of me. And for me, that's including family that came before me. Like, that's big. It's been ingrained into me heavily, right? So when we talk about things that we've learned about our history from civil rights movement and whatnot, just remembering that history, remembering the importance of history, it just encourages me now to keep telling stories that are happening right now, because history is happening every day. So when we talk about culture, when we talk about art and TV and film on the platform, we're making sure to change the narrative. You know, we're not highlighting anything stereotypical. We're creating original content. We created a new series called The Uplift. And one of our first conversations was the Black man, the complexity of our identity. So for me, that whole idea of trying to forge unity, we brought in CHH artists, gospel, people from back end of the music industry, Black men, and we're going to do more, who would tell their stories about how 2020 has been affecting them, how it's been affecting their work, you know, just kind of bringing the relevance to now, but touching on things that are happening in culture. You know, we were talking earlier how sometimes as believers, we leave a lot of that out. We leave out a lot of where we come from, and we just stay surface, and we just talk about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And he is the reason for the season, for sure. But he made us, all of us, you know, and like you said, we are not just Black, we're not just Christians, but we're Black. That's a big part of who we are. One of our more recent conversations was on overcoming trauma. So we included a lot of artists and others who are coming from the Black community to speak about that. And one of the reasons for me to do that is because, like you're mentioning, I think it's a part of our responsibility to just include these stories. And this was a way for them just to explain where they've been, what they've been pushing through, and for us to educate. I think there's still space, as we were talking about earlier, to educate, and then to also just demand action, as Dice and Derek and everyone today has been saying. So with a lot of the content that we create, we want to do that, educate, but then also encourage them to action through the things that we're putting out.
Love it.
Good.
Yeah, I think one, as far as the art that we have, as far as the stereotypes and things of that nature, I don't like to use that. I don't like to think of it in that idea, because, you know, selling drugs is a part, like that drug dealer thing, that's a part of our story, right? Like, so I'm not gonna talk about that. That's a part of my story. Like, my dad was addicted to dope. My stepdad was addicted to dope. It's people that's addicted to dope out here, and that's what I'm gonna talk about. But at the same time, I think the thing is, we get all the backlash for it when it's white people that's addicted to it just as much as us. Heroin. Like, when you think about how was cocaine getting from? They only tell the part They only tell the part about the drug dealer on the corner. They don't talk about the guy that financed it.
The government.
Colombia, right? Don't talk about the Contra. You know what I'm saying? I won't talk about how Reagan flooded the streets with dope to fund a war. We don't talk about that.
Right.
I guess the part about it is, it's like, I'm like, if we're gonna tell the story, let's tell the whole story, right? Let's tell the whole story. As far as the Cardi thing, look, hey, listen. I hope my wife is listening to Cardi B. Like, that's just at the end. I'm just gonna keep it real. But I don't want no dry marriage. Like, I hope she listens to Cardi B. I want her to do everything. Cardi B talking about.
Hey, what?
I knew you was gonna come on here and say something crazy, Derek. I knew it.
I hope you up on it. I hope you.
It's not crazy.
Well,
like,
I mean,
like, it's not for kids.
no,
Facts.
man.
Christians have this weird perspective of sexuality
Not
that
me.
is supposed to be dry, quote unquote.
Wow.
No.
Right.
I was so happy to get married, Derek, just so I could listen to R&B again. I've been
Open the vault,
waiting.
Lord.
I've been
Open
waiting
the vault.
because the bedroom is not defined. Like I've been waiting. No,
I
but no, man. Not to interrupt. I wasn't saying earlier, George, that these people were our just the influencers were our leaders, and I understood you said that they're kind of leading. I guess I want us as Blacks to hold ourselves accountable. Like when do we, like, I think that's the whole Black issue now. It's like before it was, all right, y'all drug us over here against our will. Whoop. Okay, we don't have access to this, and we still don't the way that others do. But now that we have the knowledge, now it's time for us to hold us accountable for doing the things that we know we need to do to help our culture grow and educate ourselves. That's all I was trying to say. Was like, you know, if I'm vegan and I'm at a buffet, it's going to be meat out there. It's going to be chicken wings and ribs. And it's going to be my integrity that causes me to walk by that and say my diet is vegan. So these are, they're influencing me as I'm walking by, but they're not leading me for the rest of the day or for the rest of my life. Like them things are out here, but that's not my jam. You know what I mean? So that's all I was saying. I just wanted to come back to that and say, I understand that, yeah, these people influence our culture, but they're not our leaders. You know, like and here's the deal. It's so funny. Derek brought up Cardi B again. My husband was playing a Cardi B song and I got so mad one day. I was like, I got all this music back here. I got 25 CD players worth of everything, you know, and I was like, you know what? He can play wherever he want to play, you know, and then it just became a battle. So I'm in here playing all my stuff. But I was like, it made me kind of realize like, man, it's going to be moments where things are going to happen I don't like, you know, but that's just going to cause me to step my game up, you know, and I control what I can control. And that's where I am, you know, and we'll talk about it later on. But no, that's all I was saying is it's the integrity part of us as African Americans when it's time to build us. But that falls back on us, I think. I'm not expecting a white man or anybody. No, I'm saying partnerships are good. I see you shaking your head. But I'm talking about there's still a lot of ignorance that we have concerning what we can do, who we are, and where we're from. And it's hard to have conversations with some of us because they just.
I agree. I was going to actually mention that that's a big issue. Like even for Africans and African Americans, the division that's there.
Oh man,
some of that division is there because of ignorance, right? What they have been taught and what we have been taught. And when we sit down and really talk to each other about that in a way where we're not going to get offensive about it, but to really hear, I've done that a few times and it was hard. I'm going to be honest to hear. I sat across from a young lady from Africa and some of the things that she shared about her perspective or of Black women, of Black people. And they are the ones, some of them are the ones that are saying things that some white people don't say, you know? Like they're saying we're whining about slavery, depending on what part of Africa they're from, right? So I agree with you. I'll just leave it right there. Dice, I'll agree. Education is so necessary, even just for us, for our people, because it's keeping us divided and it's holding back a lot of what we could do. So
I don't disagree with you in the sense that we have to hold ourselves accountable. So I wasn't shaking my head saying we don't have to hold ourselves accountable. But what I am saying is we have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah,
that's true.
We have to, you could get rid of every Cardi B, every Migos or whatever, and it will not change the system because what we are taught is Black people are where we're at because of us. And that's not true.
No, it's not true.
Because of the system. That we are where we're at because of a system that is designed to this day to keep us broke down. Like, I mean, you look at the if you look at the finance industry, you look at all these industries, the tech industry, there's one group of people that is not participating in those industries. And that's not an accident. And it's not because we're not qualified.
Right.
Derek, did you find it hard to, or was there ever a time you had to separate yourself from people you were walking with? This is before your success. And as you became successful as a Black man, did you find that there was some conflict there when other people couldn't change their mentality about who you were becoming versus how you should be helping in the back?
I'm gonna tell you the honest to God truth. The people that hold me down to this day are the people that held me down back then. Like this is the mistake that I've been there. Okay, like if we're talking about hip hop success in the Christian world, but I've been a part of the most legendary group besides maybe Cross Movement there is. I have no problem saying that. And I can tell you, we sat up there, changed everything about us, went and said, oh, we got to do it this way because this is how the white folks said do it. We got to do it that way because this is how the white folks do it. And you know what happened? The moment that we started saying we're Black and we needed some help, that's the moment that everybody turned on us. And that's the reason why when you look under my posts, most of my posts, when I talk about Blackness and our Black issues, they have a negative connotation because those people that we was trying to do what they said do to be right, that those actual people was the ones that was actually holding us down. So I would say, yes, in one sense, that I have been blessed because I've been exposed to something I'd have never been exposed to growing up in the hood. I'd have never been able to travel the world and see the things that I've saw. But at the same exact time, we give up on us too quick. You don't see, white people don't separate from white people when white people make mistakes.
That's true.
These guys be having nepotism. Donald Trump Jr. and Derek Kushner, Donald Trump Jr. be looking coked out on every interview, but you'll never see Donald Trump throw him away.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, we feel like we got to try to separate ourselves from us to get to the next level. That's white supremacy.
Yeah.
Like, no, we need us. Broke down, busted, beat up, disgusted us. And the only way that us gets better is that us that have learned to do better are in the fight with us that don't get it. But
that's exactly what I mean. Go ahead.
Right. If all of your energy is going to trying to explain to white people why they should love us, then when your people need help, you're not there for them because you're exhausted.
Right.
You trying to put up two things. So for me, I'm saying this. I'll go back to what I said from the beginning. I have zero interest in bearing my soul for my Caucasian brothers and sisters that won't understand my struggle in that way. I'm not going to give you Black pain porn. You're not going to get that from me. But if you want to get in and help, I'll tell you how you can help. It's going to be something really tangible, and it's going to be something that's really going to be able to help our community so that when I go back to deal with my drug dealing family, I can show them there's different ways to make money. You can do this, you can do that. And now have the energy to be able to put back into my community. But I'm saying we have to hold ourselves accountable. You absolutely correct. If somebody's around me, I'm not going to let you treat a Black woman like a animal. I'm not going to let you, I'm not going to let you dog my people out. Eat Black, white, or indifferent. But at the same time, I'm going to hold this system accountable. Because we're not going to be able to fix this without the system changing. I don't care. You can listen, and I don't know if I can say this on thing, but Jay-Z said it best. Light nigga, dark nigga, poor nigga, field nigga, rich nigga, still nigga. You are in a lot of people's mind, whether you come in pants sagging, gold teeth or whatever, or in a Benz, you still a nigga. So in my perspective, it's like, yo, for us, we have to understand that. And for the people that don't view us like that, hallelujah, thank you. I'm glad you're part of the family. But you're not gonna be able to dress your way out of this. You're not gonna be able to white talk your way out of this. Like, you're not gonna be able to lighten your skin out of this. Like, we're gonna have to take this, and we're gonna have to walk and chew gum at the same time and hold us accountable, but at the same time hold that system accountable as well. They don't get no breaks. The system don't get a break. That's my point.
Mic drop.
So
what he said.
Yeah, I agree. We cannot do that. We cannot. But I one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking, Derek, and I know, you know, some of your story, and I'm not trying to get like, you know, on a personal level, but more so like, how can we be long suffering with one another and hold each other accountable? Like, we all have these family members, and I would say just people that are in our lives, or just, it doesn't even have to be people in our lives, but just Black businesses or Black people, or just the know that we have this kind of Black experience as other believers. Yet we haven't, just like with sharing your faith, you have to be patient with people that aren't there just yet. And I know you, Derek, personally, from a knowing that you had to endure a lot of personal setbacks, financial setbacks, and actual real sacrifice that you had to make in order for those stories to actually, for other people to be successful within and around you. But my question is like, we're as leaders, nobody sees that stuff that happens behind closed doors. Nobody sees all that stuff. So the little kid that's following us on social media, they just see what's posted. They just see the actual, if you're talking about your real story of dope, of somebody in your family being strung out on dope, or you grew up around people selling it, and you're talking about the real struggle of that, the kid from watching that, they don't see that as like, oh, that is just the story of that. But I say that's the difference in our communities, is like, we're talking about those things, but the people that are from the Appalachian Mountains cooking meth, they're not talking about that in their music. They're not perpetuating that. So we don't have that stereotype of that. Now, the system is way bigger than just that. The system is way bigger than just music. It's way bigger than just TV. But I see that these are tools that are being used against us, that if we don't intentionally shape ourselves in such a way to counteract those things, are we just perpetuating the same system that is keeping us down?
I would disagree in the sense of that right now, there's a whole genre of music that's, you talking about the Appalachian Mountains, meth, drunk. There's a genre of music right now. It's popping in Nashville called hip hop. And it's literally just white dudes with a country twang talking about that exact same thing. And when you look at the people that follow that exact same thing, they follow it. See what I'm saying? Like we're like, yes, bro. There's certain stuff that's like embarrassing to watch. I agree, but that is not why we are at where we're at. We are at where, like, those things are why we are at where we're at. Like,
I agree.
Us not talking about them, talk about them or not talk about them. We could put everybody in suits and ties. Look, people was getting mauled by dogs in the civil rights movement in suits and ties. Point blank, period. So it's like, it doesn't change that. So, and the thing is, but here's the thing: we have grace on white people when they talk about their nonsense and they do their nonsense. The president of the United States is the most ratchet dude in the world, and everybody has grace on that. This man talking about grabbing their vaginas, everything, and for the most part, the people that he represented, they was like, "Oh, that's not a big deal."
Right.
No.
Right.
So what I'm saying, I'm like, when it comes to white people doing things that are, bad, no one looks at them and say, "Man, look at white people. That's why they at where they at." But for us, when we talk about when there's people that, like, for some reason, the world is obsessed with the most extreme ratchet parts of our culture, right?
But that's the part that's glorified. That's the part that's put out there.
No, it's not. There's black art across the board that is beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah.
It's beautiful.
I agree.
We are producing. I'm saying that we are producing.
But it's not going viral on TikTok. That's the problem, I feel like. That's the part.
At the same time, too, Donald Trump, that's just how the world works. The world likes train wrecks. Donald Trump was a train wreck that became the president. Like, the world likes train wrecks.
But George, you just said, you said, why isn't it going viral on TikTok? And I'm over here like,
as an example, like,
saying nothing
fair enough. Yeah, I'm like, it's so much on TikTok. But also, if this is what I'm talking about, it's almost as if, and I'm not coming for you, George, but it's almost as if black people have been trained to point fingers at black failure or struggle or things that look awkward. And I'm gonna keep it real with you. I mean, I got a sister and she probably sells some stuff she shouldn't, but I do not haggle her every day. I show up in my life every day, every single day. And when I have the combo with her, I drop the seed. But I also keep it pushing and keep it moving. And I let her know it's a different way to do that. And when I tell you this girl started a whole company last month, and I thought she would never start a company and do anything legit because she's in the hood and that's what you do in the hood. And I didn't knock it because you never knock a man's hustle. And I say that as a Christian and as an African American. I'm not in your shoes. I can't tell you how to feed your family. But I'm gonna be real with you though. I think that we as Blacks have kind of been groomed to point out Black failure and struggle and not really uplift and even show our own selves. Like it's a different way. And the only reason why I say that, man, is because there was a time where I would turn my nose up at people, even in Christian hip hop. They'd be like, "Oh, Dice, let me do this beat for you." And I'd be like, you know, like I'm looking at him sideways because I'm like, I don't know if he's saved, or I don't know if somebody gonna say something if I put him on my, you know, just struggling. And like the Bible, we need to love God, love your neighbor. Can we get the royal law going in every aspect of our lives? Because honestly, ain't nobody changing nothing but the Holy Spirit. But I'm not gonna get religious on this. All I'm saying is, for culture's sake, we are our teachers, and yes, we need partnership because there was no civil rights movement without white people. We need to just say that too. Right. It's like yes, there and there will be no other movement without white people. So it's like we have to learn to partner, but in a healthy way. Like I think Derek said that earlier. It has to be a healthy way where you're listening to what we need, not trying to tell me what I need. I'm in it. I know what we need. I know how it works. I know.
I'm just saying, like people like us, like but I'm not where I'm at. Derek's not where he's at. Like say Kendrick Lamar is not where he's at. Drake is not where he's at because they make Black music, but they're not selling millions of records or getting millions of streams because of other Black people. That's
no,
not
it's majority white.
It's because of because like what you were talking about, Derek. It is you know, Black people's porn. It's that lifestyle that people live in vicarious. It's the people that are touted, that are the most famous, that are actually shaping and impacting our cultures, shaping and impacting the perception that we have. My question is not that I'm like trying to say I'm pointing out how bad they're doing. These are individuals that are just doing that. They're not there because they did it for themselves. Like that's what the culture, that's what the community actually wants. What I'm saying is that as a leadership principle, I cannot control what other people do. I can only control what I do. And if we're talking about a collective as Black people, I cannot control how white people will perceive us. I can only control.
But here's the thing: perception.
What we do.
Reality, our realities are other people's perception, and the things we care about, we have to voice. So like we were talking about TikTok a minute ago. If all 5 of us jumped on TikTok right now and then told all of our other friends, like, we're going to push this one person's artwork or Jonathan's new video, and then we told all our other friends, this is what y'all going to do this week. We're going to do it all week. The perception starts to change that we care about Jonathan. So it's like and I'm trying to tell you this, and everybody knows this when it comes from a marketing standpoint. Perception is reality, and so whatever we do is what's going to be picked up. So there, you know what I'm saying? So it's like we can change anything in a heartbeat, especially with the internet now. Everybody has a cell phone where you got Clubhouse, you name it. Like it's nothing for us to start to step up and say, all right, this is what we're doing this week. This is who we not.
So that's why our responsibility is how can we shape the perception by what we promote.
I'm sorry.
You go.
Go ahead.
No, ladies first. Ladies first.
I was just going to mention, going back to what George and Derek were speaking about at first. I don't necessarily, I kind of agree with you both. I don't necessarily agree that some of the stories, whether it's about, you know, drug dealing, etc. I don't think that the negative stories are the only ones being glorified. I just think the negativity of our race is what's been glorified the longest by the wrong people who are telling our stories for us. Right. Which brings us back to like the question you were asking, George, you know, what can we as creators do to change it, because we have the power to change a perception
Yeah.
through the work that we do, the films
right.
we make. And I think that's happening right now, even
Right.
if we are referencing some of those things, because sometimes when we reference those things, we're doing it because we're speaking to them for a certain purpose. And if you're going to speak to a particular body of people, you got to know their language.
That's
you know,
right.
you got to know where they come from, their world.
Right.
So I totally understand why there's a snowfall, you know, or why when Derek, he writes from his world where he comes from and speaking to people he still knows, you know what I mean? And even some of us, you know, so I don't think that the negativity is being glorified more. I think it's just been glorified the longest by the wrong people. But we're in a space now where we can continue to change it, and we've been in that space.
Yeah.
We've been in that space for centuries now. Well, for years now, and to fix that, but for years now, and yeah, I think it's great to have this conversation today to just kind of think about what can we do in our spaces. And I saw a movie called One Night in Miami that is about the very topic, you know, so I'll leave it there because that's another conversation. You guys saw that? It's all about, you know, you saw it, Jonathan? You're a filmmaker.
Man, I saw that trailer I saw the trailer. I can't wait to see it.
And I won't give it away.
That thing is fire. Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch it when I get home.
Here's this talk.
I want to say this too. I think we cannot disconnect from things we don't like in our culture. And when I say disconnect, I mean be aware. I think you have. I think a lot of times we don't serve our culture well because we can step outside of it or walk by it or try to quote unquote forget about it. And it's like, that's not helping, you know, that's not helping anybody. And I mean, I'm aware of it now, but you know, there was a time where I was pushing, keeping it moving and on to the next thing. And then you realize like, man, I still, to your point, I always want to call her Tamara.
Tamara.
To your point, we do need to keep that language in there. You have to be able to communicate. And I worked at a detention center, and I'll be honest with you, I was listening to conversations that I had no clue about, language that I didn't understand. But the more and more I listened and learned the language, I was able to communicate with other people who were in the detention center, and it relaxed. You know, they got relaxed with me. They're like, okay, she understands. And I think a lot of time that's what we want. We want to be heard, we want to be understood, and we want to be seen. And then we can start to work on these solutions. But it's hard to listen to somebody who's disconnected from me. You know, it's like, man, do you feel my pain? No. Then we can talk about maybe a drug issue or me gambling, or I'm doing this. I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying, like, the person you're talking to, like, you have to kind of stay in the flow of what's going on in your culture to be able to change and affect that culture. That's just my 2 cents there.
I'm gonna say, go ahead, Jonathan, because you haven't got a chance to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. So 2 things that I really thought, just kind of from the back and forth, was one, just that scripture in Genesis where it talks about that's right after the fall. You know, they're putting on leaves. God's sweeping through the garden or walking through the garden, and then he sees them. And he's like, you know, he's like, "Where were you?" He's like, "We hid because we were naked." He's like, "Who told you were naked?" You know, and so it's kind of like an identity issue kind of deal, where I feel like a lot of times the problem with social media is a lot of people, even though we say, like, you know, yeah, people just wear it, but they don't embody it. I think people do get a sense of identity from for a certain level from the social media, and from, you know, especially this younger generation. Like we can say, like, not for the older generation, but these younger kids, like they dress the same, they're wearing the same shoes, wearing the same hairstyles, or, you know, doing the same thing. And so, like, you look at these kids who don't look towards, you know, like our community, don't look towards God, you know, and they're more so looking towards whatever's put in front of them. That's why TikTok is blowing up. That's why we see more videos about dancing and, you know, and comedy, like, are more prevalent. You think about TikTok, you're just thinking more so about entertainment, not enterprising. You know what I mean? And so, like, I see these, you know, the thing is, like, these artists, like even these kids nowadays, I see them as batteries almost, because the song's the same, the beat's the same, you know, like everything. And they'll literally replace you if you don't do what they want you to do. Like, Literally, these companies are built on basically saying, we're going to tell you what your story is as an African-American person.
Totally.
Pretty much. When they make these movies, they say, hey, we're going to tell you, like you said, how we're going to do your story until somebody comes up and says, no, I'm going to do 𝗵𝘃𝗴𝗵𝗴 station myself. Right. I'm going to do the way they see us myself. You know what I mean? And these movies come out, but those are speaking to a piece of our hurt identity, and not also the identity that gives us courage, the identity that encourages to, like, you know, to push forward. And so even kind of to Dice's point earlier too, about, like, you know, like being able to have these conversations, I'm reminded of the woman at the well with Jesus. Like, you got to be able to have that conversation. You have to be ready to, that woman is by the well by herself. Like, he knew enough to be able to speak to her and speak to where she was at, you know, and he cared enough, no matter his standing.
Yeah. He wasn't,
you know, and so
he wasn't supposed to talk to her either.
He wasn't supposed to talk to her because she's a Samaritan. He a Jew. He like, bro, like, you know, most people would look down on you for being able to have these conversations, but we need to start having uncomfortable conversations. We need to start speaking into the identities of people, because that's what gives us courage. If you think that you're just this, like my friend always talked about, there's two different views. You can have an ant's view or a bird's eye view. The ant, when he sees an apple, he says, oh my gosh, this apple's so big. How am I going to get around it? I can't get over it. I don't know. But a bird, when you're up above it, you can soar past it. You have so many different other options when you have a bird's eye view compared to an ant's view. But sometimes the world doesn't give us that. When you see these kids, like I watch music videos continually to stay on top of it. These kids got guns in there. Like, you know, and I'm looking like they got clips that are just freaking this long. And I'm like, what life do you live that makes you think you need that? And what makes you think that you look cool doing this in the video the whole time? You know what I mean? I need to get the perspective to minister to them. But at the same time, like, I have to see where the root is. And the root is the system that's already been there since the beginning, that was, you know, founded the Sonys, the RCAs, whatever you want to go back to. And we need to change that. We need different leadership. We need different ownership, because we need to tell our authentic story. We need to say that don't reflect us. This is not who we are, so that we can move past that.
It's, for me, people don't really know where I came from. They hear the music, but just because of the music, they think that, you know, maybe I'm just entertaining as well.
Right.
But I'm from the trenches. My family from the trenches. I just literally, my house, I've been in my house for 7 years. And my mom made a point. She said, there's never been 1 year that you and your wife have had this house by yourself. I've always taken somebody in from where we came from, let them get on their feet. And then so far, I've been good. Everybody that's been here, they've left and they've been able to prosper. But I've seen the trenches. Dudes is not with them guns for show.
Right.
It's not Sony's fault. It's not RCA's fault. Like, that's not a show. People really need them guns. Like, because it's bad in the trenches. Like, it's poverty. Like, in poverty, it's bad in the trenches. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying you were saying that that's the only thing, but if we're talking about perspective, question earlier was, what do we do to change that perspective as a leader? Now, as a leader, all I can do is just say what I know to be true, and to try to encourage our people to be better. But I'm going to say that with a caveat, that Black people are the only people that collectively have to bear the responsibility of those that make the mistakes, of the small minorities of us that do certain things. We're the only people that have to collectively bear that. Nobody looked at Honey Boo Boo and said that was all white people. Nobody looked at Bachelorette and says that's all white people. But that's ratchet.
That's what I was saying a minute ago. And Jonathan, and I don't want to attack you on that either, but when you talk about guns, no. Listen. Mission Trip Haiti by One. The first time I saw a teenager with an AKA was at the gas station. And it wasn't about anything but survival. And it changed my perspective. I don't know. I don't like it. You know, I don't like to see that. But I was like, this dude is out here for his own reason, that he's taking care of his family, he's protecting what they have going on. This is how they're taught. I can't, you know what I'm saying? I'm still going to get my juice out of here. But it was like, that's his life. And I was like, man, this is real, you know? So it even taught me that, no, I don't like everything I see culturally, but that is what we're dealing with. And it's up to me to kind of say, there's a different way if you can, you know, but I can't determine if they can, you know, so that's, and it's like, you got to teach.
I'm saying,
go ahead.
I'm saying more so the context, like, and maybe I need to say a little bit more context. Like, cause you're right. Like I went to Jamaica and Haiti and literally they all got like literally guns to, like, even for us, for the missions, I'm like, okay, like this is the first time I'm seeing guards walking around, like people just with guns, like just chilling, like just literally right here at the hip, just in case, you know, and they'll stop and they'll look around and be like, okay. And then they'll go back to business, you know, but even the same thing in our own, like you said, the trenches, like, but the reality is all as well, like we lost Pop Smoke, we lost Kayvon, we lost, you know, so many different African-American rappers who were coming up, you know, and they were stifled almost, like robbed from us. You know what I'm saying? Like I was a Pop Smoke fan, like, you know, them drill type beats be hidden. So then like, for me, it's more so like the music videos don't show the context.
That's true.
You get what I'm saying? Like that's more so what I'm saying. Like when I say that is there's no context for what's going on. We only see the entertainment. And so these kids only see the entertainment. Like you're right. Like to me, like the hood is almost like the Wild Wild West. Like it's going by a different rule. It's got different, you know, different ways of working, and people can't just say, well, why don't you just get out of it? Like that's what we literally hear, you know, from our other, you know, other races. Yeah, that's right. It's like, why don't you just get out of it? You know, and I'm like, no. You can't just say that. You got to know the context, you know, because even still, we get a $600 stimulus check and people get new TVs and new rims and it's something deeper than just saying, okay, well, money will fix it or this will fix it. No. Like, you know, like even, you know, we passing out turkeys like Nino Brown, but like that don't change people's mentality or that don't change the reality of what's going on. So I think I was just saying more so the context when people show guns and when people glorify certain things, because like even now, like that's just the boys. The girls are creating OnlyFans now. Like girls are out here trying to do what they got to do to make money because they're trying to do what they can to put food on the table. And for somebody to say, okay, well, you got to get off of OnlyFans, but it's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to make money? I just got laid off. I got 2 kids. I'm supposed to be able to take care of my kids, pay bills, and do this. Now, what do you?
And especially as leaders, and I know we've been way over time on this, and it's been a dope conversation, a really dope conversation, because my perspective is that we're talking about Black history in the context of this conversation. How are Black creatives making an impact on culture, and what is promoted and what is art reflects life, and not only life reflects art, but you know, you can go vice versa on all those things. If we are seeing on TV that you know, that it's all about guns, drugs, sex, and money, and you know, all women that have an OnlyFans account, that's a story of Black struggle. That is a perspective, and that might be the reality of some of our perspectives. Like regardless of what, you know, I come off as, like I've been in these, I've grew up in these situations. I've been in some of these situations, but I also know this, like, it's not to be glorified. You're talking about context. Context is very important because but the problem is we live in a society where we're 13% of the population. And then the woman the white woman at the bank or at the grocery store is going to look at Tamara or Dice and say, oh, she must have an OnlyFans account. Like that's the perception that they may have. So what we are glorifying is a false perception of what our reality of is everybody else is. Now it's not, those are realities of some people, but how are we doing? What we're doing is we're talking about Black history and what has brought us here today. We know that there's a system that can or cannot be rigged against us, or that's rigged in some way, shape, or form. think as Black people, we're smart enough to realize there is a system, and we can find a way to we can understand the system and beat the system within the system that's broken as it is, to be able to go in and change that system. It's not going to happen overnight. We didn't get here overnight. But my question is this: like, we are, before I'll let you guys have the last word before we move on. Because you good,
yeah, you good.
Me and Derek will have conversations and arguments for hours. So
I gotta say this one last thing. I gotta
Come on, D.
ask 13% of the population that own 1.5% of the wealth to change the media narrative of the whole nation.
We're not going to that way. We're not.
Ask though that's because the reality of it is among all the black art that's being funded is not being funded by Black people.
True story. I agree.
By white people. So we could take all of it off the table, but if you go get, like, they're going to snatching these kids out the hood that's broke, giving them $100,000 advance and telling them to tell their story.
Right.
Like, so that's why they glorifying it, because that's the story that they came from. You go get a dude that's in the middle of the trap and give him $100,000 in there and say, hey, rap about where you came from.
The problem is not the artist. The problem is not the artist. It's the system that funds it to promote it and to make everybty believe that that's the narrative. So I'm not talking about the artist.
That system, screw that system, because that system is a bigger arm of the other system that put the boy
there.
I agree.
First place.
Totally agree.
Right.
And I think
first, and then we could talk about the system of the boy talking about where he came from. Like, I'm not even interested. Like, I'm like, dog, if a little boy is in the middle of the trenches and he get 100,000 to tell his story, long as he ain't people no more, hey, look, until we fix that system, I can't hold him accountable for that, because that's the system he was raised in. But I can say, we could do our best to try to snatch as many of them young boys out of there and try to show them a different way. But the reality, that's
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the solutions. We recognize a problem. We recognize a problem, and there's a lot of problems that we can recognize. But as leaders, until we focus on what are the solutions that we can actually tangibly do, we know that there's some things that other people can tangibly do. But what are we doing as leaders with our platforms, with our influence, with our leadership that can be the solution, small as it may be? What are those things how are we going to create Black history today? And I'll let you guys have the last word. Tamara, I would love to hear from you.
By speaking truth to power and to culture, speaking truth boldly, which will mean that we'll have to educate ourselves first, right? And that we'll also have to be willing to put in the time and the work to do that creatively as creatives, because that's what we're talking about, right? So we are in a space now, even if we don't have all the resources, we still need checks. I do. The media platform, I do films. And that's something that I want to do more of. That's expensive, but I'm a storyteller, so whether it's journalism, this media platform, or a film that I'm working on, collaborating with others, I want to use those spaces to speak truth to power. And I know that I'm going to have to educate myself even more, in a lot of different ways, to speak to many different people. Many of the things that Derek even said, I didn't grow up in the hood, but being from Chicago, I cannot say that my life has never been touched by it. I've been in all arms of this city, and I have a large family in multiple cities. And in this one, I've been pretty much everywhere in here. I cannot say that I haven't lost someone to gun violence. I cannot say I haven't lost someone to any other type of violence where they've lost their lives or come close to it. I've been there when one of them happened, you know what I mean? So it's like remembering then also the words that vocal coach gave me, like never create from a place less than where you've been. Remember the stories, remember the things you've seen, but then be solution oriented and figure out what do you have in your hand that you can use right now, and then use it. Like, don't just think about making money. Don't just think about making the white people in your church feel comfortable. And I say that even with love, because I'm speaking to us, right? Because I know that there's a challenge. I speak to various creatives and or leaders in predominantly white churches, and we all have to be very careful in how we say things. But there comes a time, and we're in it, like everyone's been saying today, where it's okay to hold each other accountable. And it's okay to say, we need to see action along with your words. We love you, brother. We love you, sister. You are our family too. You are our people too. But we need you to like show that in action. And when you ask us what we need, you know, listen to that, you know, and find ways to help. But for us, speaking truth to power and speaking truth to culture through the things we create.
I think one of the things I'm reminded of the scripture that says, count the cost before you build the foundation. You know, and just because I think one of the things that I want to learn about is creating infrastructure for us to live past, you know, where we're at now, or create things that sustain past our lives, you know. And so I think by making Black history, I think we have to create an ecosystem, creative production companies, creative leaders, creative infrastructures, so that we can be able to build something that the next generation is able to grasp onto and to hopefully steer the future. You know, like they were saying, like, you know, we might just be the Israelites in the desert for all we know, you know, and God has to literally sometimes wipe away a certain way of thinking for us to be able to move to another way of thinking and another reality. And so I think being able to work with integrity, I think about making history and how people may perceive Black business, making history as an African-American leader, a father, a brother, you know, a minister of the gospel, no matter, you know, when I go on a set or not. Like even like this weekend, I was able to minister to a brother who was, you know, dating, and he was like, had so many questions about marriage, and, you know, and being able to do those things, small and big. You know, I think we should be all, you know, ready, because we can make history in so many different levels. And my talk, who knows, like, he's younger, you know, who knows what that could have done for him, you know. And so, like, don't forsake in the small things, you know, do not despise small beginnings, and just remain authentic to yourself, and hopefully just live an authentic life and create and be intentional in what you want to leave this world with when it comes to history. Because that's a great question. Like, how do you make Black history? And I think that that's the question I'm going to ask myself probably for the rest of 2021 when I wake up in the morning. How will I make Black history?
Good. Well, I'm gonna go next, and I'm gonna say education, from who we are, where we've come from, and partnerships with where we want to go. And to your point, like, what do I want to leave? What does that look like? But also not being ashamed. I think I'm over that. I think I'm Black and I'm proud. I hate to say it like that, but it's true. And I think that other people will learn to appreciate us the more we share our story. And whether it's the narrative behind what they see, how a certain thing got to be a certain way. But I think it's important to share our story. And that's the good parts, the bad parts, the ugly parts, and not be afraid to ask for what we need. I think that's how we change. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying what we need. I mean, if it's education, if it's money for shoes, if it's a new school, like, we have to not be afraid to ask people whether they look like us or don't look like us. If they're ready to partner with us to help to build our culture and make it what we see it could be a little bit better, you know, like, let's go. And enough with the excuses. It's like, it's just time to do, you know. And if we see a place where we can post or show up and make something better concerning us, we just need to do it and start to love ourselves a little bit more. I think we could do that better, you know. And I think that's how we could continue to build, is education, love, and action.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would add I would say everything everybody said, and plus financial literacy. Financial literacy and the understanding of how the dollar works, the understanding of how the politics work. And I would say those things are the key, because the only way to change or the only way to grow within a capitalistic society is capitalism. It's either that or you just have to erase the whole thing and start a different system, which I don't really see that happening. So I think Black people need to get educated about finances. And I would also say that we need to seek mental health. All of us need trauma therapy, that those that can afford it, and for those that cannot afford it, and for us that have, you know, done some of the trauma work, we should allow our friends and family to process with us and to be able to talk them through that. There was somebody that was staying at my home when we first got here, was really bad off, really bad off. And the thing that changed him wasn't the money. It wasn't the fact that he was able to save money. It was the fact that I was able to help him look his trauma in the face and walk through it. And as I was able to help him look his trauma in the face and walk through it, then the finance stuff started coming into place, right? Then the spiritual stuff started coming into place. But if you're not looking your trauma in the face and wrestling with it, it's gonna be really hard to be successful. So,
got a shameless plug there. Therapy. A young girl at my job, she talks about her therapist all the time, and I asked her one day, "How do you have the money? You know, because you always at the therapist, don't you?" And she said, "You can get a therapist." The people who are in training too. So I want to throw that out there, Derek. Thank you for saying it. But the people that are in training can also operate sometimes in their practice. So I didn't know that. I thought you had to have somebody who has that license, but I'm just saying there's another opportunity too, to get someone who is almost there, to walk with you through therapy. So.
Yeah, those are all amazing and extremely valid points. And a part of that, it has to do with having these type of conversations, because this has been, Black Creatives Matter. We're all creatives on this, storytellers, and a conversation of how Black creatives impacted culture. And I feel like this conversation alone, it impacts one another. It impacts our culture. And I think a lot of this, what starts the healing process is conversation. It is talking, and it is communication. It is talking with our God first and foremost. It is talking with others that don't look like us. It's talking to our community, but it's also talking within ourselves, facing our own trauma that we have, to understand and to work through some of these things. So I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you guys. It will not be the last conversation that we have. But thank you guys for joining on with me. I really appreciate it. This has been Black Creatives Matter. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll see y'all later.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.